How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Boxing One podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the SEC today. A little bit of a deeper dive, as that was pretty much the most requested thing. As when I put up my poll, do follow me on Instagram, same name as Jaybird account. We picked up a little bit of steam since my last episode. I think we were probably about 2.5 months since our last our last edition. I guess I moved, then I moved again. Last time you were with me, I was in Pennsylvania. Now I'm in Florida. Probably gonna be here hopefully for a little bit, but we're all settled in now. We got our desk, we got our setup back again, and hopefully we're gonna pump out videos. I'd like to get back to normal Sunday, every Sunday, but we'll see. But today we're gonna be getting into a deeper dive. Today you can see kind of my projection here today, 1 through 16 for the preseason standings. A lot of those lower teams I haven't done, I guess. Really, I don't think I've touched really too much on Georgia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and LSU. I don't think I really touched too much on them this offseason. Not really have too much. I don't really have too much expectations for them in the conference. Maybe at most each of those teams will win, maybe like 6 games each. We'll see. So I haven't really touched on them. LSU, I think, has like 5 active players that are eligible as it currently stands. Won't really touch on them too much, but we'll start off here with what did I have? My first one of these notes. Getting into Vanderbilt. I think they're pretty good. We're going to have to see them a little bit to play. I think they have the big thing, obviously, was Tyler Tanner returning. Ace Glass is another really great pickup for me, or for them, I think. But I really like him, obviously. But how do you say? Buchengel, I really like his name a lot. He's a very good, underrated player at Nebraska. I liked him a little bit, too, at UCLA when he first came over with Daimar, another one of those players that I don't know how Mick Cronin keeps getting some of these big names to go play for him. But another one of those teams at the end of here, Auburn, not really too high on them. After the whole Bruce Pearl stepping down, we have Stephen Pearl's era last year. I mean, tried to beg their way into the tournament, basically. Whatever. I guess they won in the NIT. They ended up, so I guess and everybody's happy. Maybe not the Auburn fans, but we won't touch too much on them. I'm not really too high on them, even though I know they have Todd Pettiford. He's pretty. I mean, we had a little bit of a regression year last year. Narcisse Ngoy, who did get drafted, and it's gonna be returning to college. That's gonna be a really interesting one for a lot of Auburn fans, where we don't really see. I guess we did see it last year. So I guess in the new world of college basketball, we're seeing a lot of these players have pro careers and then still ending up in college basketball, which I don't know. As it currently stands, let some rules be replayed, but that's the world we're living in right now. Last one of these names we won't really be touching too deep into, but Texas A&M. Another one of those teams I really want to see. I'm really excited to see Bryson Warren. I think that's a really amazing name. I've been a really big fan of him back to his G League days, way back before into his OTE days back when he was I think he was the YNG Dreamers. Jeez, that's a long time ago. But he did a couple years in the G League. He was with the Heat for a little bit for their all farm system. Then he was with the New York team last year. We won't be touching Dean Payton in this, but one of his teammates. So 2 players from that Westchester Knicks making their way to college this year. But I think that's a really sleeper team. Obviously, they were top 5, top 4, I think, in the SEC last year. I think they were top 3 actually. I have them way lower than what they could be. They have Mbako's also coming back this year off of ACL tear. I think Buckyball could be really rejuvenated there. I haven't even touched on PJ Haggerty. Was another name that I really, really am excited about. But again, it's not to say that a lot of these teams can't still make the tournament. I still expect those, maybe Texas A&M and Vanderbilt, to be probably potentially even higher than really what 8 and 9 projects. I still think they're just a lot of teams. I think SEC is going to be one of the best teams. That's why I'm touching on them first. I think those 2 teams are probably not easily going to make the tournament, but I mean, here as it is, what's today? July 13th. I think both of those teams easily can make the tournament here when we get into 2027, which is kind of crazy to say in a sentence. But Oklahoma, I didn't really touch on too much. I think they're also a pretty interesting team. I like Darion Reed coming back and staying for that team. Not really too much. I guess who else do they have? Xavier. Man, I can't remember his last name, but that's is this Xavier Brown? I can't remember, honestly. I'm trying to think. They have a couple of good players over there still. I like Blue Kane a lot for Georgia. I think they're still an interesting player. I think Cannon Carlo. Where is Cannon Catchings? Geez, I don't know why I can't think of all these names. I should have wrote down some better notes, I guess. But Cannon Catching's going to be a really good name. We're kind of going off on a tangent right now in the live, but I like Cannon Catching a lot. I think that could potentially be a first-round pick. Now, I didn't really touch too much on these teams down to the bottom, but I think Cannon Catching's going to be a really good name come, I guess, October, November, we start to see some of these teams actually start playing some meaningful games, but ramping up their seasons. But first of all, we're kicking this off. I guess I haven't really touched on that. We're going to go from backwards from 7 to 1. We'll first be touching off with Missouri and a little bit deeper of a team projection why I created some of my rosters if you have seen those in the past, but we'll just kick it off right on there. As said, then we'll be hopping into now I think I had 7. Jeez, I already forgot that fast. Transitioning over here, but we talk about the 7th team here today on my standings. I guess not really referencing anybody, but I don't know when I released this. Maybe like 3 weeks ago now. Maybe you can change some of these spots. I mean, Tony Bryant obviously maybe could be in the starting lineup. The big name that probably people don't like is Trent Burns being in the starting lineup. I really like the idea of just playing a big man that's like he's 7'5". Great rim protector, not really shot blocker. I'm just saying rim protector where he changes a lot of shots. You run that for like 2 to 3 minutes in the first stretch of the game, just make it really hard for a team to score, and that slows down a team's offense a lot, especially when teams are playing on the road. I think that's a big thing that does. I mean, it's not really talked about. Coaches obviously will factor that in. Obviously, that's why they're in the position they are. Tony Bryant's a big name that could obviously be in the starting line. Trent Pierce was a big name that a lot of people didn't like. And like with Kennard Davis, just with more spacing. Jameer Jones was rumored to play the 2, and then you move Trent Pierce in there. I think they have a lot of great players. Unfortunately, I have them at 7. I think this is a really good team where I still think this is probably potentially a top 25 ranked team. I think I still have them there. I can't remember the last time I released a top 25, but this is still a really good team. I really like the addition of Brayson Tiller coming over. I think that was I think he ended up being like a 4-star. Probably was a 5-star if he would have stayed in because he reclassed. So he would have been in the 2025 class, ended up reclassing going to 2024's class. I think he ended up being like a 4-star in that, but I think he's a really good defender too. He can play potentially the 5 and stretch down and play the 5. Then you move Trent Pierce in that lineup a little bit there too. Jameer Jones is another guy I really like coming from Florida, so I've heard about his name for a long time. Really great rim. I guess he puts a lot of pressure on the rim. Great getting it downhill. Kind of a stronger body, like 6'5", 6'6". Not really the greatest shooter yet, as you can see. The 57% field goal percentage is very misleading from this. Not really the greatest shooter. I think he probably will take maybe a step, kind of like a Cohen Carr would say, where maybe he's shooting like maybe 1.4, maybe 1.6 threes a game. Don't really want him shooting a whole lot of them unless he does massively take a jump. I think Kennard Davis, Tony Bryant, Trent Pierce, and other players that you can stretch the floor with here. Not really too big on him really shooting there. I think he's gonna be a big defensive player there, high energy guy. I think momentum shifts are gonna be a lot with him, or just dictating a lot of them with him. Fast break dunks, high energy plays where he's just gonna make a high energy play on defense, probably pick someone's pocket, jump a passing lane, then gets out on the break. Maybe that's like a 4-0 run, 6-0 run, 7-0 run. You know what I mean? Create a lot of energy that way. Like I said, also touching back on Brayson Tiller, it's a guy that's just gonna be spacing the floor a lot for them. Where I don't know, I like this lineup a lot. You can let a lot of these guys get to the rim. Trent Burns, not really the greatest screener yet, not really the biggest. He's lengthy and tall, but he's not really the most filled out frame, kind of like Sean Phillips was last year for them. I think that's kind of what I was kind of replicating a little bit here, where there's that big body thing. He's like maybe 7'1", 7'2", high energy guy. I don't think Trent Burns is really too high energy to say, but I really do think he's gonna be able to change a lot of shots there to start off that little bit of the game. Only think he's gonna be a sophomore next year, redshirt sophomore. But the big one that I want to talk about a lot, I know a lot of people probably have seen a lot of my questionable takes potentially with Jason Crow Jr., but I really like his name. He's the #1 scorer out of California. Just go up and look up how many players have come out of California, college or NBA. Tona Yesufu is another one who did break that record. He ended up breaking Tona Yesufu's record, who literally held it for like 8 months or something like that. Extremely talented scorer, but the thing with him, Tona Yesufu obviously is the frame you play defense. I don't even want to talk. We're not talking about obviously that conference in Tone Day, but he has a frame to score. He can get to wherever he wants, right? Jason Crow has the ability to then create for anybody else, which is that's kind of the biggest thing here that I'm talking about. If we can see him come in and maybe average like 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 assists here while still averaging 14 to 17 points, maybe even 20 points, and really lead this team. We see all Darius Acuff do a lot of crazy things last year in the SEC. I can easily see him sneaking onto the first team SEC. I can easily see him be potentially SEC Player of the Year, top 5 pick. I mean, I'm really high on Jason Crow. Maybe I have too much high expectations for him, but I really do think he's going to be really the engine of this offense. You might be looking at this team as there's not really too much going on, but I think it kind of a lot of people, if you remember the Bennett Sturts role last year at Iowa, where they have one high volume guard that really does everything for the team. I think that's what Jason Crow is going to do. That's why he ended up going to Missouri. I feel like I think he had maybe some relations, maybe his dad or uncle were on the coaching staff, if I have to remember it right. But amazing fit there. I really like, is it Dennis Gates or Dennis something, their coach, whatever there. I really like this team a lot. I don't know if I stressed that enough, but I really do like the shooters they have around them. Tony Bryant's another 5-star, or 4-star, I guess. Whatever. McDonald's All-American, I haven't really touched on about enough. It's another really good name there. I think he potentially could be another one and done. Kind of reminds me a bit of Carter Bryant. I don't know if he has the handling and playmaking ability that Carter Bryant kind of offers, but the shooting, the floor spacing, the defensive talent, versatility on the defensive, 6'8", maybe even 6'9". I really like that name, and I really do like this team. Maybe they can be a little bit higher than 7. Like I said, I do think this team's probably going to make the tournament, but that's pretty much all I have for Missouri. All right, then hopping back into it here with Arkansas. Not a lot of people like that I have them here at 6th, but I think it's a very young team here. With you just got the addition of what was it, Frolov? I think Ilyan Frolov. I think is he German? Oh, he's Russian. The Russian big man. He had a pretty decent showing at A&G. I think it was A&GT or whatever that is, the summer tournament, Adidas summer tournament. I think it's like a U18. I think he averaged like 10 and 5. I don't know why I keep saying I think, but I know. Not probably going to be a big part of the rotation. Maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't really play. 18-year-old kid. I know they have Paulo Samito, who's another guy that probably took a little bit of a step. Right now I have him projected to probably start Cooper Bowser, who I don't really think is a 5. He was very efficient last year. Actually teammates of a guy that we're going to talk about very soon for that Furman team. That, I mean, they're pretty good. They played really well against the UConn last year in the tournament, but I think this team would have been a lot higher with if they would have kept Malik Thomas if he didn't end up going to the draft this year. Personally, I think this team still has a lot of great players, but I think this, in the long college season and when you start to get to the tough times towards the end of the year, I think a lot of people have experienced this with Calipari know that you need some type of experience to kind of get past a lot of points of the year. Mika Murinen, J.J. Andrews, Adu Toure, and Jordan Smith Jr. here. Obviously very good players. I think they're going to be very great players once they're done with college, and probably all are going to be. Maybe Toure stays for another year. All going to be very good players all in college. Maybe not the first year, but I think they're all going to be great players when it's all said and done. I think once they go to the NBA, inevitably after the first year, they're going to be another amazing players. Calipari just has a knack for producing players in the NBA. Do I think they're all going to congeal and be the best team in college? Probably not. I think that's a lot to expect here for this team. I like the addition to Jeremiah Wilkinson, another great guard. I think last year they were in the SEC. He's battle-tested playing for that Georgia team last year. But if that's where you're kind of expecting a lot of your veteran leadership, and Billy Richmond was a really great addition to get back from pulling back from the NBA draft, and then we had a lot of that scare where he kind of went and for like 10 minutes. I think it was like 5 minutes, honestly. Maybe it might have even been less, but he was going to the draft, and then he pulled back out of the draft, and it was like a big scare. I know we talked about it probably like a month ago. I think that's a huge addition. I think this is probably going to be your top 3 scorer on this team. Maybe J.J. Andrews plays a little better. I think he is going to be probably a one and done. I think potentially even a lottery pick. I'm really high on J.J. Andrews. I think just a lot of it's going to be experience. Where Jordan Smith, yeah, he's a very great player, arguably the number 1 or number 2 player in this class. I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit different than... I need to see some of the jump shot. I know he's taken a lot of improvement here. His shot has really improved come the past, 6 months, 8 months, the past year a lot. I'm going to need to see it when we get into college play here. I don't know. I don't really think he is more or less the best on-ball point guard. I like him more or less on this off-ball, kind of like a Davion Mitchell for the NBA. I think getting him a little bit off-ball, a really great defender. I think he's going to be a problematic defender. I think that's probably going to be his calling card past this one-and-done season where he potentially could be a top 5 pick here. But I don't know. I don't expect to have the same experience here where I don't think it's going to be the same output where Darius Acuff was this amazing guard to come in. I still think Jordan Smith's going to be really good. I still think he's probably going to average like 15, maybe 15 and 4, 17 and 4 points, or 17 points and 4 assists, maybe 1.5 steals, maybe 2 steals. I have questions about how this team's going to fit. You have 2 smaller guards here in Jeremiah Wilkinson and Jordan Smith Jr. I know he has a crazy wingspan and can play up. Billy Richmond doesn't have to talk too much about defense. Mika Mironen is an athletic freak. Haven't talked too much about him here. I think that's also a really great freshman. Obviously a 5-star, but I do have a little bit of worries about here on the defensive end. I don't think they really have somebody that's going to be able to stop you down low in the post. I think they have some great wing players that can play that, and like Jordan Smith, like I said, and Billy Richmond. Jeremiah Wilkinson, not really the greatest defender. He's more or less going to be out there. He's probably going to be your second or first leading scorer, depending on how great or efficient like the other 2 guys, like I said, Jordan Smith and Billy Richmond. But I have a little bit of worries about Cooper Bowser playing your 5-man in the SEC, where he is a little bit skinnier of a guy. I don't have the exact measurables. I think he is probably around 225, maybe a little bit heavier than that. Maybe he's lighter than that. I think he's like 6'11", so he does have the size, but SEC is obviously, it's probably one of the closest leagues to probably, I'd say, professional levels. I wouldn't say the NBA, but I'd say European level's not really the level of basketball at times, but I'd say the size and weight of a lot of these players. So I think coming from, I don't even know is that the SoCon where Furman is at? I think that's a huge jump, obviously. Then I guess we'll touch on the bench a little bit, because they do have some amazing players down there, in Adu Toure and then JJ Andrews. I do think they're both high energy, versatile guard / wings. Toure more or less, I guess both of them were really like kind of like a 3, and then more or less a 2. I think JJ can play the 2 a little bit, depending on how well his jump shot looked. It looked pretty good earlier on. Again, that's another question. How well is this team going to be able to shoot the ball? Again, with Jordan Smith Jr., Billy Richmond, and Mika Mironen. I have no questions about Wilkinson's output. Like I said, I think he could potentially be the best scorer on this team. I think a lot of it's going to be inexperience and potentially the jump shot that's for a lot of this team that's going to hold them back. Again, like I said, the SEC is a stacked conference, so a 6th in the SEC might be top 2 in a lot of other conferences. Like I think this could be a top 2 team in the ACC behind only Duke. So I wouldn't take too much stock into it being ranked. Again, somebody has to fall in the rankings. I just do not expect too much out of when it comes down the stretch here from a lot of these young guys when time gets tough, when you're going to play a lot against juniors and seniors. But once again, I do think this is a good team, probably 25 wins at worst here in the regular season. All right, continuing on, we'll have my team here now, the Kentucky Wildcats, and even having it at 5. I think they probably could be a little bit higher than this. I think I still want to see that team play, especially how disappointing their last season was, I guess. But I think it's a really good team coming into it now. You have pretty much a whole new slate. I think there's only, 2 returners on this team, as it looks like. Yep, only 2 returners in my projected lineup. I really don't think we're going to go too much deeper out of this. Maybe Mason Williams gets a little bit of minutes, as he was looking really well in practice. Maybe Trent Noah gets a little bit of minutes. I don't think we're going to go that deep in the rotation consistently. But I think the biggest names here, obviously, we'll start off with the biggest name. Obviously, the big addition of Milan Momcilovic was literally the biggest news of the offseason, it felt like, when he pulled out the draft for 1 and then ultimately committed to Kentucky, kind of like I did predict that a few weeks before in advance. But I think that ultimately is a person that kind of like solidifies this team, as they were obviously looking for shooters to play in that Mark Pope system where you want a lot of spacing, and show signs they didn't really have that last year. But now you also continue on. I think Ousmane Dieng is another really Ousmane Ndiaye, sorry, is another really important player that I don't think really has gotten too much shadow. I don't think he really ever gotten really talked about this offseason at all. But just a few years ago, he was one of the best players looked at outside of America, internationally, as just outside of the NBA. Really, he had a lot of NBA potential. Just a few seasons ago, I think even like maybe 2-3 years ago. Probably they're on 3 now. Really athletic, versatile wings, or I guess forward. 6'11", freakish at balance, probably like a 36-inch vertical, lengthy. Efficiency is pretty terrible. Well, that's probably the best way to put it at this point. I think he needs to completely rework a lot of his shots that he does take. But being in an offense here where now you should be getting a lot of great looks, as I'll touch into these guards here in a second, I think that's gonna be a great player that averages maybe like 7.5, maybe up to like 8.5, 9 points a game. I know it's maybe a little bit over projecting, but I think he's gonna be a game changer. He could potentially be really a force I don't know, a force on defense with his length. But we'll see. He's also 22, so he's a little bit more experience playing over professionally, probably for like 5 years now. I think it's really going to be an X factor of this team. But we're getting into the two guards, as those are two of the bigger names. Malachi Moreno, obviously coming back. We'll touch him in as well the bench in a few second. But one of my favorite players in really all of the transfer portal this year was Zoom Diallo. Before he committed, before any of that, was one of my favorite must-go-gets guys. And he just happens to end up on one of my favorite teams. I think this is a guy that's going to be kind of similar to Otega Oweh, not really in a sense, because he's kind of a guard version. But he's going to be able to get downhill, get to the basket whenever he wants, get to whatever spots. And if we do see kind of like an Elliot Cadeau type of leap with a jump shot where he's taking a lot less on-ball creator shots, like off the dribble and a lot of stuff like that, where he's getting a lot more catch-and-shoot looks, where he can potentially even shoot maybe 3 of those a game, depending on how the offensive flow. And if he does take a leap with his shooting touch this year, we potentially could see him shoot maybe around like, I don't think 34%, 36% would be too crazy if he only shoots maybe 80 of them on the year. That might be even a little bit more. Maybe you only want him to shoot like maybe 65. But I think the big thing is going to be he probably averages maybe like 12 points, 13 points, 14 points. But the assists, I know 4.5 might seem like a lot, but I think this is a guy that definitely can average maybe upwards of 6. Depending on how much volume you really see from Alex Wilkins here, but I think this is going to be a similarly, how I said, Bennett Sturtz, kind of like an Elliot Cadeau, where this is going to be a general. He's going to be expected to generate a lot of the offense. Jeremy Fierce, both those guys are just expected to generate a lot of offense. I think Alex Wilkins will take a lot of the restraint off him at times, be the spell guy, vice versa, whenever one of them get tired. But I think here now he's shifting over to Alex Wilkins. I think now this gives him a position to now move off ball, where he is just crafty, I guess the best way to put it. He's like 6'4", or not 6'4", probably like 6'6", I think he just remeasured in. Lengthy, can really get to where he wants, 3-level scorer. Absolutely cooked UConn in that game, kind of just showing kind of what he was doing to a lot. I think, what is it, SoCon? Furman, I still don't know, but not a great, yeah, it actually does say SoCon there, so not a great conference, but, I mean, the numbers were ridiculous. If not the efficiency, so per less, I think shot like 33 or just a touch, 32.8 from 3. But if we can see him be able to get to the basket, get to the mid-range shot, as well as just shooting a lot of consistent open jump shots from the 3-point range, like I said with Zoom Diallo, we can potentially see this guy, I think, take a leap to a first-round pick. I really do think he's going to be one of the best players in all of college basketball next year, and going to be one of the biggest stories, as he wasn't heavily recruited. He was initially supposed to be a D3 commit before somebody made a call and got him to even Furman. So from Furman to SEC to being potentially one of the best players, maybe the leading scorer on this team, I think that's going to be an amazing story that a lot of people are going to be covering nationwide. But kind of just wrapping this last thing up, I think a lot of the shooting is going to come from the bench here with a lot of interesting players like Jerome Morton, just a Kentucky guy. I think won't touch into him too much. Going to be maybe an X factor of the bench. I do like him a lot, obviously. Cam Williams, we saw a little bit from him, a hustle guy, could be an X factor. Frank Kepnog, a 37-year-old man, that we'll just leave it at that. Jess McBride, a very interesting big body guy. I don't really have too much expectations for him. We'll see. I think a lot of Kentucky fans think he might be a little bit better than what I'm portraying. But last thing we'll leave it off with here real quick is Malachi Moreno. If he takes a quick leap to like maybe around 10 points, 8 rebounds, and gets that up to 2 blocks, maybe gets up to maybe 43-point shots in the year, and he's just better with his hands, can finish around the basket a little bit better, that potentially could be top 20 pick there. And I think Kentucky has a chance, maybe, maybe go past the Sweet 16. I think Sweet 16 is kind of still my expectation for him. I don't think they're really going to go too far past that, but we'll have to see with injuries and kind of how well this team meshes together. But I do think this is still going to be a really fun year in Lexington. Their next team, the Alabama Crimson Tide, as this team has definitely changed a lot for me personally. Even in like the past month, they changed, and then even with the reclassification of what's his name, Anderson Diaz a few days ago, that really completely changes this team's dynamic for me personally. I think coming into it, we're just even we'll touch back on a month ago where they didn't really have an expectation to have a point guard, where they were trying to say Mari Allen's going to come back and play their point guard, and for me, I was like, they kind of have a hole still at the front court position, and we'll touch on that in a second. But a lot of young guys on this team, and then not having a point guard, that's obviously a huge red flag. But you get Aiden Holloway back. He apologizes for his errors, and hopefully he doesn't make the same mistake. And hopefully he has a great year. I think this is a guy that potentially could average like 20 points easily. I think the efficiency is insane, shooting 44% from the three almost, and shooting almost like 7 a game, 50% over the from the field goal percentage. Absolutely insane splits, hyper efficiency, which is crazy to say from his freshman year at Auburn. You would never think that that'd be the same sentence, which is kind of shown how big of a leap he's taken in the Oaks' system here. But I guess we'll touch on it real quick because this is his older graphic. We haven't even added Anderson Diaz, where he'd probably be replacing I don't know. Like I said, this team is pretty deep. I don't even have Cole Kohler or Clower. I can't remember. It's Cloer. He's not even in this graphic either. I think he's gonna be an important part of that bench where he's a 6'8", 6'7" shooter. 4-star in last year's class, so the 2025 class, we all saw how many hits there were in that. So it's another guy that just really would be another 25 freshman. I think he should be a true freshman too. Didn't even report to NC State, so from my understanding, he should be a true freshman this year. I think he was dealing with injuries anyway, so we'll see how that works out. But I think there's a lot of talent, obviously, here with Amari Allen. I think that could have been a top 25 pick for me. I think we're going to see a huge jump for him, just kind of similar like to LeBaron Filan here, where I think he's probably going to come in. Maybe this is a Nate Oates system. You got to remember they had two guys almost averaging 17 plus last year almost. I think Amari Allen might be averaging the same thing, maybe similar to what Aiden Holloway's numbers are over there. I think he's probably going to upward tick in his rebounds, maybe stay around the same bit. I think the big thing is his playmaking ability. We're going to see a huge jump there where a lot of people I don't think really know that he is capable of being a great playmaker for others. I think he's kind of similar to Josh Hart in a way on offense where he makes a lot of the right plays without having the ball in his hands 24/7, and I really do like him, especially on the defensive end where he can be a point-and-attack defender there for a lot of teams, guarding these quicker, twitchy guards in the SEC. I really do think that's going to be a big plus to get him back. But we'll combine all these wings here together. London Jemison, I really do think that's an amazing ad to get back there. I potentially could see a lot of games where he's starting here over Drew Felder. As well as I think Terrace Bowie could potentially be a spot start here for Quaden Samuels. I think they're just very versatile athletic wings, similar to what we saw last year, London Jemison and Amari Allen coming in. Nate Oates seems to find these guys from the 6'6" to 6'8" range that just can handle the ball, shoot the ball, lengthy, and can defend. And just they can play 2 through 4. I think that we're going to see the same thing here. Jackson Richardson, the other son of Jason Richardson, another really great versatile wing, might even be way more athletic than his own dad. I think he's way more athletic than Jace Richardson, his brother too, for the Magic and Michigan State alum now at this point. I think this team's gonna be really good. I think my expectations are a lot higher now. Obviously, like I said, with the point guard, potentially an 11-man rotation, night in, night out, night out. Nate Oates obviously wants to play very, very quick every single game. He wants to go as fast as we can, get as many possessions, get as many 3-point shots as up, and players are going to get tired. You have a former McDonald's All-American here in Brandon Garrison. Obviously, being a Kentucky fan, as I said, I've seen a lot of them. I don't personally think that this was a bad move. I don't think so. I think this was a great move for Brandon Garrison, the way he wants to play. We saw a little bit of his 3-point percentage too, but his rate dropped a lot this year. He didn't take nearly as many. I think Nate Oates is definitely going to be like, dude, Brandon, you're getting it up. BG, I need to see the threes go up. Same with Drew Felder. We're going to see a lot of 3-point shots coming out from there. Nate Oates obviously wants to play 5 out. Good. A lot of people love him. But the biggest thing I think he was going to have also, you're going to have Jamarian Davis Fleming there coming off the bench. Another high recruit, another 4-star freakish athlete from that big position, the guy that's going to potentially offer some rim protection, as well as Brandon Garrison, where I think that Nate Oates, you were looking at from Aiden Sherrill, kind of, I don't know the whole story behind that, why he ultimately decided to leave. I think you kind of replace him with 2 separate people that kind of offer the same thing, which you probably would be seeing from Aiden Sherrill in his junior year, but I really do think that maybe was the drawback of this team, but with having more guard plays, like I said, I'd probably have Anderson Diaz as a top 7 guy in this rotation, maybe top 8. I'm really high on Anderson Diaz. I think potentially we could even see him start with some games if we start to see him maybe towards the conference play, if we see him play, past my expectations. But I think he's going to be a key part of this team here, and I really do think Alabama, especially since Mark Pope hasn't beat him since he's been there, that's kind of why I have him above. I don't think Arkansas is better than Kentucky, and I don't think Kentucky's better than Alabama, so obviously that's the order that I went in. But I really do have high expectations. I think this is a great year once again for Alabama here. Getting into my top 3 here of the SEC as it currently stands, like I said, on the 13th. I don't know. I woke up today and I really do think Tennessee is going to be another good team here. Obviously, I think a lot of people expected the same thing. Here is a move up. Oh. I think the one hole here is still like the center position. Obviously, not a lot of size on this team. They're all pretty much like I think Day-Day Ames majors in like around 6'1", 6'2". I think Jalen Harrelson's around 6'7", and Miles Rubin might be 6'9", maybe 6'10" on a good day. Dwayne Brown's a force there off the bench. I guess we'll go on the bench real quick here. I don't want to touch on them too much here. Dwayne Brown's maybe like 6'8", 250. I mean, mountain of a man, but the height's just not there. We have Brandon Liu is another interesting one, kind of 3, I think, or not 3, 4. Maybe he's gonna play, or he probably is gonna be expected to play a lot of the 5 here out of the backup position. Another guy's probably like only 6'8". I don't like the size, which we'll get that out of the way. Tyler London Blade, I'll get on that in a second, but I don't like the size. But outside of that, I don't see a lot of teams being able to play with them 1 through 4, where there's a lot of guys, kind of like similar to Texas, where you have a lot of guys that can work out of the isolation here. I think that's a lot of their strength, coincidentally enough. Do I personally like that? Kind of coincidentally, I don't like playing. I didn't like I wasn't a huge fan of Texas last year. I know this is about Tennessee right now, but I don't think that the isolation translates too well. But going into the preseason ranking, I do think this is a really good team that has a lot of expectations. I don't think I can rank them lower. But I do think there is definitely some flaws. But if it all comes together and it all looks good, if this was a team like the Big East, it would be perfect matchup. I don't know why, it was just a random thought, but if this team all comes together and they can each all score around, like, take turns, your turn, my turn, your turn, I can see potentially different leading scorer 3 times out of the week, and maybe 2 times, I can't remember. I think it's 2 times a week they play. We're going to see a lot of different scoring options. I think 1 through 4, they have an option to potentially go off for 20 points easily, as a lot of guys. I think they all averaged over 15 plus here, where they all were except for Terrence Hill wasn't the main scorer. He was a big scorer off the bench. I think he still was top 2 or top 3 in scoring for that team, if I wasn't mistaken. Spent a lot of time coming off the bench too. But this team has a lot of good number 1 options now, where Juke Harris obviously was one of the best players. We haven't even touched on his name yet. I think he's going to be a preseason All-American, potentially preseason All-American, SEC All-First Team, preseason All-First Team. Really, really good player there, and Juke, obviously, I think he's going to be the leader of this team. Potentially he's going to be averaging 20 points once again, maybe 17 here. I just have the question about the playmaking. I don't know who's going to be a lead playmaker here. I do think it's going to be a lot of isolation here. With Day-Day Ames is really good at working out of his own isolation, the 2 assists. No, numbers don't always mean the total story of it, but he wasn't expected to create last year playing with Justin Pippen. And now Terrence Hill, I mean, he was playing a lot more on ball. I might not be fully up to date on 100% of his capabilities here when I'm saying this, but I wouldn't really trust to have him as my main playmaker, to be honest with you. I think potentially we could also see him being another hot spark off the bench here. Potentially move Tyler Londonblade in for more spacing in the starting lineup. We have Terrence Hill come off the bench and try to average maybe 8 to 12 points off the bench and be a quick, maybe 6th man of the year. I don't think that would be too crazy, I think. I think Irvin Clavshar is the only competition potentially for 6th man of the year there. But I think defensively it's going to be a bit of an issue, as again, I know I'm getting into the top 3 and I haven't really said too many positive things about them, but I think you'd rather have my true opinion here. I don't have a lot of high expectations for this team. I do think that they are, on paper, a really good team here. I think they're going to work really well out of isolation. But is that always going to be consistent enough to win basketball? I don't think they're going to be really good in defensive end. I think they're very undersized from 1 through 5. Literally 1 through 5, they are very undersized. But there is always a but. If they can consistently play offensively, I mean, you only need to technically win each game by one to have a win. You don't look at it and say, oh, this guy won by 17. That's a better win than a win. It's a win at the end of the day. You only need to win by 1. And if they can consistently outscore your opponent, and now as simple as that sounds, I don't see many teams that can stop this offense if they are all clicking. But if we get some locker room stuff where they all want to be the guy, where it kind of looks like they all were the guy, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic here. And I know I have them here at 3. I personally don't think they might not. I honestly don't know if they're going to make it past the first weekend. I think they probably make it past around the 64. I know it's going to be a huge upset. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for saying that, but I do think this is probably like around a 32 exit. As good as of a team this does look on paper, I just don't see it with the size, especially when you start to match up with a lot more. Those possessions matter. You can't take those isolation possessions every single time. So we'll see. Rick Barnes is an amazing coach as it is, but he hasn't made it to that Final Four there. Tennessee's never been there. I don't think this year is going to be the same way, but we'll see. I'm just a person that's making the video, I guess. Now, coming down to the final stretch here, we have one of my final 2 teams, and this is a team that literally Marcus Spears might have committed 3 days ago now when I'm time of making this. The team obviously gets a lot better when you get another number 1 player to jump into your recruiting class here. I don't know. I don't think I fully have taken into how good this team could be, fully grasp the value of how good this team could be potentially. I think that, like I said, I just touched on it obviously with Tennessee, where I wasn't too big of a fan of the isolation. I think this team definitely gets a lot away from a lot of the isolation, where you get a true point guard. No hate there on Jordan Pope and Dalen Swain. Who, I mean, there wasn't really a point guard in Dalen Swain, but you get a true point guard. I'm a really big fan of that. Obviously, for college basketball, I think it's a much different game than NBA and all other levels. I think a lot of you would probably agree. I think you go get a really good true point guard there in Isaiah Johnson, a guy that can also still score for himself. And then you surround him with a lot of versatile defenders and an amazing complementary player there in Mikey Lewis. Amazing shooter. I think it's going to be an amazing spark scorer for this team too as well. He had a great versatile wing there in Elijah Freeman, where he's kind of coming over from that struggling Auburn team where they didn't really have a whole lot going. There wasn't really too much of an identity here or there. Now I think he's going to be established here. He's going to be a guy you're wanting to be a 3-and-D guy. Potentially you can offer a little bit off the catch here. Probably can flex down, play some 4. I wouldn't really move him past that. Probably would just 3 or 4 here. But I think the biggest 2 people here are your front court. Big fan of David Punch here. I think this might be the biggest move, keeping him in Texas as well as the Marcus Spears who we'll talk to. I think the bench might be one of my favorite parts of this team. That's a huge addition there in David Punch. I don't know if everybody might be up to date of how big of that was. I don't know how high he ended up being ranked. I don't know if he was even the top 10 rank. I would have had him maybe there, maybe top 12 in the entire transfer portal. I think this guy completely remodels your defensive identity. As Volker Titus isn't the greatest defender, or really known to be the greatest defender, you're getting a guy that's maybe not going to measure in, as I know I was talking, not the greatest, but Tennessee with height-wise, but this is a guy, I think he's at like 243. I know it's odd that I know that off the top of my head, but it's going to be very hard to move him here in the post. So he can play up. The defensive instincts are insane, where I think he almost averaged 1.5, or he did maybe. Can't know off the top of my head. I know he almost averaged 2 blocks there. But the defensive versatility is insane. I think this will be the defensive player of the conference as it's all said and done. Scratch my back here. An amazing rebounder too, a guy that did definitely evolve his offensive game, where was expected to create a little bit more off the bounce. Yeah, I was gonna say more or less off the catch in the corner, attacking closeouts at times. Not really the prettiest post game or offensive game really in general. But I think this is a defensive anchor that you're going to get that you didn't really have last year. I mean, Dalen Swain on the wing, but I think in college basketball, you need somebody down low. I'm not saying this is going to be the best help side defender. I mean, I think he still has obviously the potential to be it. But I think in being able to just lock up a bigger defender, maybe not all the talent on the wing out in the guards and stuff, but taking away a huge part of the opponent's offense, I think is going to be huge for this team here. And I think David Punch is going to be not the sole reason, but a big part. We'll touch on the bench, like I said. And Matas Volkatitis, I think might be the biggest name in of the SEC. I think I might be underrating him. I think with my projections, I can't remember. I think I have him second team. I think he easily can have an argument for being one of the best players in the entire conference. Ridiculous foul rate last year, or drawing foul rate, where he averaged, I think, like 7.1 free throws attempts last year, which is absolutely insane from anybody, let alone a center. Not the greatest efficiency, but I imagine he'll maybe get like a point or a 0.04 percentage uptake, maybe 0.07%, I guess I'll just say. Uptake here. I think we definitely could see him consistently still being a great post threat there. As I'm turning my brightness back up, sorry. So we are on the fly here. I haven't recorded a video in so long. Forgot to keep that on the charger. But I think we're definitely going to see another important uptake here in the offense. I think this guy that not a lot of people are going to be able to guard him in the post, probably in the entire nation. Like I said, the foul rate's insane. Where you're going to be, that's going to be the guy. Where if the offense is stale, where you don't have a lot of isolation threats on the team anymore, so we're going to be looking to get to hit Volcatitis down low. I think a big thing is stamina. I know they have John Clark, who we talk off the graphic, be backing him up. Wouldn't really say Marcus Spears could play the big. I mean, David Punch definitely could play some center minutes, especially against those bench bigs. I really do like this starting lineup a lot, but as I've been hinting at, I really do like this bench a lot more. Marcus Spears, obviously the number one player coming to recruit, up to recruit, but you get his high school teammate here, OT alum too, as well, in Austin Gooseby, another 5-star, potentially composite 5-star, whatever. McDonald's All-American, another versatile scorer. I think he definitely will be seeing a lot of start spots for Mikey Lewis there. Very, very great bench. I think the biggest one, I know this is not really the biggest name, but my favorite probably is Amari Evans. I'm probably not going to touch too much on Bo Ogden because I'm running quick on this. But Amari Evans, I think that might be the best defender on the entirety of the team. Not entirely, wing defender. But him and David Punch and the minutes that they spend, oh gosh, hiccup. The minutes that they spend together on the court, it's going to be ridiculously hard to score. And if the offense can take a small tick, if Amari Evans can shoot like 37% from 3, 35% from 3, just be an amazing defender. If David Punch can take a little bit of a leap from the 3, I don't see anybody really being able to stop this offense at times. And I think this could easily be the best team out of the SEC. If not easily, I think this could easily be one of the best teams in the SEC, because obviously we have the next team I'm going to talk about here, and I really do think this is going to be a fun year here for a lot of Texas fans. And then closing this thing out here, we'll have potentially another favorite to win another championship, as they won one obviously 2 years ago now. A lot of familiar faces, as it's one of the only not only rosters, but like one of like 10 rosters retain like 80% of their team from the previous year. We didn't really. I don't think we saw any. I don't think anybody transferred out, right? I could be wrong. I don't think anybody transferred out from this Florida team. Like I said, a lot of overall roster overhaul. And the biggest transfer addition, I guess, to this team is, as you can see, the only person that doesn't really fit in a Florida jersey. Probably should have put in a Florida jersey, but Denzel Laverty, coming back, he fought, I guess, the NCAA, and they deemed him eligible for another year. And I think he only played like 40-something minutes, 50-something minutes his freshman year. I guess they ruled that a redshirt year without any injuries or whatever. I mean, have you seen crazier things? Tista Ritter is like a 24-year-old sophomore, so you've seen crazier things in the world of college basketball. But I think with the overall roster, not overhaul, but retention that we're seeing here, we have to expect that they're going to get better, which is scary, because that front court, that bottom line here, Thomas Howell, Condon, Robin Chenyulu, it doesn't get much better than that. It honestly doesn't get much better than that. I do have this team ranked as my number one team, still only over Duke, where I do think Duke's ultimately going to win the championship. I think just because the retention here, I have to obviously show them some love here. But I do think this team is going to be very, very, very challenging to beat for the rest of the SEC. Can't remember off the top of my head. I think they only lost 2 games in the SEC, maybe 3 last year. Good luck if we're going to maybe potentially even lose that many this year. Man, coming to the end, I'm not used to having the videos, I guess, anymore, but I think Boogie Flan, we're going to see another leap there. There's a former McDonald's All-American as well. All right, I'm pretty sure he was. A really great guard, I guess. That was a guy that could have won a top 40 pick 2 years ago. Kind of had a bit of I wouldn't say down year, kind of just didn't really improve too much. I guess he kind of just rounded out his game. I think we're going to see a bigger leap here, as he's going to be expected to be a lot more of the primary ball handler. We saw Aberdeen definitely take a huge leap, as he was expected to be the point guard last year for a terrible Kentucky team. I think this is going to be a very good starting 5 here at the end of the day. Didn't really have to touch on these guys too much, as we've seen these faces. These 3 have played with each other now, as it's going to be the 3rd straight season. Scary stuff. We've literally seen them grow up in front of our eyes, and I think they're going to be literally even better. I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of them sneak in the first round next year. But my favorite thing, I don't even have the guy in the graphic here, but A.J. Brown. I know he hasn't probably gotten talked about a lot here. I know nobody really expected me to talk about A.J. Brown with the last couple minutes of this video, but the brother of Isaiah Brown, I think that is a huge transfer addition that's going under the radar. Sat out last year, transfer from Ohio. I think that potentially could be the best shooter on this roster. I know Aberdeen speaks for himself, Klavchar as well, but I think the biggest thing for this team is shooting. Isaiah Brown had his spurts last year. Nice story for Gator fans there. But his brother, I think, is better. I think he's going to be another great scoring option. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the leading scorer off the bench here. I think we're going to see another improvement year from C.J. Ingram, another improvement year, but we're going to see a leap there from C.J. Ingram, who was another top 50 recruit, if I don't remember correctly, if maybe a little bit lower. But he didn't really have too many minutes available for him last year, but now we're going to see a bigger role, I expect, with behind Thomas Houck still. But Domin Petrovic, too, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Petrovic, sorry, Domin Petrovic. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I think he's maybe 21. Is it Serbian? I probably have all of that messed up, but I don't even know if I want to touch into him now because I don't even know if I'm correct on what I'm speaking on. But I do know as a player, he's very versatile, kind of like a Thomas Houck and a Alex Condon kind of combined. Wouldn't really say too much of the playmaking abilities, but that's going to offer you another amazing bench big here. I think he's another pro. Like I said, he's a lot of pro experience. It's going to be tough where you can't even get these guys in foul trouble because you're subbing in another experienced guy or another junior that has pro experience, like I said. A guy that can put it on the floor, has amazing three-point range too, great shooter. I really don't know what I don't see very many teams beating this Florida roster here. I'm sorry, there wasn't really much to talk on. I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves. I think it's going to be a big repeat year from last year, and I think they got better. No hate there on Xavier Lee. Maybe the lights were too bright. You were expecting him kind of to round back into shape, and it just never happened at all last year. I think we saw a huge leap from Klavchar and the result of it. Boogie Flan, I think, rounded out his game, like I said. I think we're going to see not a huge leap. I think the efficiency will take a huge leap next year as we're seeing him play on ball more. Probably going to see around 4.5, maybe 5 assists from him. So we're going to see Aberdeen take a smaller role back to just being a scoring threat and a better role for him. And I do think this team is going to be scary. I don't think there's going to be many teams that are going to be able to hang with them. I don't see them losing a regular season home game. I don't see them losing a home game at all this year. I think this team's just going to mop the floor at home. I think Florida, the swamp, or whatever you want to call it, down in Gainesville is going to be literally a hard place to play it. A bunch of rowdy kids are all expecting them also to go back and win a national championship. So we're probably going to leave it off there. I do think this team's going to be really great. Like I'll also leave it off. I think the SEC as a whole is going to be very great. I think it's probably the best conference. Maybe the Big Ten might be only better than it. But I do think this is going to be a very, very, very fun year here for the SEC. And hopefully we'll see how many of these projections are correct. But that's probably going to be it for me. Like I said, we're probably going to try to get back into every Sunday post, as we do have a full setup here once again. But we'll see if we get a special guest, if we can maybe get Deegan to come back. That'd be pretty cool to see. Maybe some other of my friends. I know we probably may do a deeper dive in Alabama, as I had somebody that wanted to talk to on that in the past. But that's going to be it for me for this time, and I will catch you hopefully next Sunday.